just like our men are consistently being weakened in the present. And when I say in this last story that men are being feminized, I mean literally. Just recently in Tennessee, we passed some laws. We passed a law to ban gender mutilation in children, and we passed a law to ban drag shows for children. Now, I can proudly say that I had a small role and standing up and letting my voice be heard, not only in city council meetings, but outside of some of these events, protesting against what was happening. And now we've seen a complete role reversal, how the tables have turned when we take just a little bit of effort and time out of our schedule to stand up for things that matter. And now the police that were once trying to keep concerned citizens out of local businesses are now keeping people from abusing children in those businesses. So, see, before, children were being abused while cops were focusing on concerned citizens. And now those cops get to focus their attention on the children that are being abused. And now our society is all the better for it. But in the process of that, there's been some outcry from the mainstream media and especially from the LGBTQ community saying all of the statistics that you're hearing about gender-affirming care in minors is a big lie, and that actually only 1% of people actually regret their gender transition. So let's look at this article from Yahoo Lifestyle. In updated treatment guidelines issued last year, the World Professional Association for Transgender Health said evidence of later regret is scant, but that patients should be told about the possibility during psychological counseling. Now, already we have a big problem here. The people who are being cited in this article are from the Professional Association for Transgender Health. Now, I have to just be honest here and kind of lay my cards on the table. If it was from the Journal for American Medicine, JAMA, or from even the Pediatric Association of America, it wouldn't matter, because these places have all been bought out by Big Pharma and bought out by a leftist ideology anyway. But suffice to say, starting the article with the Professional Association of Transgender Health as though that was actually a professional thing. It sounds professional, but as though that we were supposed to be able to find like objective evidence from these people is total nonsense. But the article will go on nonetheless and say, Dutch research from several years ago found no evidence of regret in transgender adults. No evidence, right? Who had comprehensive psychological evaluations in childhood before undergoing puberty blockers and hormone treatments. Some studies suggest that rates of regret have declined over the years as patient selection and treatment methods have improved. In a review of 27 studies involving almost 8,000 teens and adults who had transgender surgeries, mostly in Europe, the US, and Canada, 1% on average expressed regret. All right, so there you have it. There's the numbers from this article here, and this is actually from the AP, and Yahoo is kind of recording it. But anyway, in this article, it says that only 1% of people in the US and Canada, from teens to adults, expressed any regret whatsoever. Boy, that's a incredible low level of regret. But what you should know as you peer a little bit deeper into this study is that it was kind of done so in the form of, let's say, an undergraduate paper that would have gotten an F, because they say in most studies. Okay, like what studies? See, this is a dead giveaway for those of us who want to join the indie thinking community and think for ourselves. Whenever somebody says most studies, rest assured that they are either lying or obscuring. And there's a good reason they're saying what studies here, because they don't want to actually assert what study they are citing. Because when you actually dig into the study, it's kind of murky. Now, again, let me just be clear. I'm going to assume, based upon the evidence they present here, that the study they're referring to is the one that I'm about to throw up on the screen, which is cited by the NIH and on the NIH website. Sure seems to cite the same kind of statistics. I don't know for sure because it's not actually cited in the article, but I'm going to assume, based upon the evidence presented, that this is what they're actually trying to convey, is the citations and the results of this study. So a couple things to note about this study. This study is done so with a ton of missing data of surgeries, how old the people were when they had surgeries, how long ago the surgeries were, and all that. There's no baseline in terms of the types of procedures that are cited either. That's just kind of all over the board. It's this wild hodgepodge of just basically everything that they can throw into one study. Furthermore, there's no acknowledgement of the fact that people are really less likely to speak against their transgender surgery and expressing regret because they know that there is a social cost for doing so. So, in other words, this whole study's a mess. It's really, really unreliable. A way more reliable study would come from PLOS, which is the Public Library of Science, which is a peer-reviewed medical journal. All right? Unlike this NIH study, this was peer-reviewed, and this study found this. Persons with transsexualism after sex reassignment have considerably higher risk for mortality, suicidal behavior, and psychiatric morbidity than the general population. Our findings suggest that sex reassignment, although alleviating gender dysphoria, may not suffice as treatment for transsexualism and should inspire improved psychiatric and somatic care after sex reassignment for this patient group. And by the way, just in case that's not convincing to you, let me show you this study from the NIH themselves about cancer surgery and people who are trying to alleviate cancer symptoms. This study found that 14.4% of patients regretted their surgery for cancer. So we're supposed to believe that people who are taking elective whole body plastic surgery only regret that 1% of the time. I mean, have you seen some of the people in Hollywood and the plastic surgery they get on their faces? You know somebody, you have a friend who got plastic surgery on their nose or on their face or something like that, and you're like, you looked better before the plastic surgery, friend. So we're supposed to believe, with that reality in mind, that 14% of cancer patients are people who regret surgery, but only 1% of transgender patients regret surgery. Can somebody say lie much? So the point is just this, that right now in the present, we are literally feminizing men by taking men and turning them into women. I know we're doing the reverse as well and turning women into men. And regardless of if that, shakes out numerically in the end, it doesn't matter, because the point is that women are not men and men are not women. And men trying to be women are an incredible issue for our society today. I mean, just look at what it's doing to media alone. The new Mario Brothers movie should have been something that we all rejoiced in seeing, except for the fact that the roles have been totally reversed in this new Mario movie. Although Chris Pratt will star as Mario and probably be a good lead actor in the film, or at least voice actor in the film, we are going to have to be subjected to the wokeism of Hollywood by the fact that Luigi now is the one that's been captured because he's too weak to protect himself, and the princess has to come along to help this bumbling, fumbling idiot Mario get through all of the perils and dangers of this Super Mario world in order to go save his very weak and submissive brother. No! Ah! Get it up, get it up, get it up! So again, here we have the hero woman and the stupid men who can't help themselves. And this is what we're supposed to believe. How idiotic that Hollywood thinks that we actually believe women are stronger physically than men. It's ridiculous. We're hosted to things like The Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, which should have been a spiritual wonderland of deep, meaningful messages rather than the most stupid thing you've ever seen in your life, because you constantly see a blonde-haired, fragile woman going around beating up men. We all know better. Fortunately, we have the past to look to, and I know this is kind of a dorky example, but forgive my nerdiness for just a moment. I started watching The Walking Dead on Netflix, not because I like zombies at all. I actually hate the gore of that show, and actually rather look toward the kind of human drama of the show, because it's actually very interesting. Because in the process of writing the show, it constantly comes back to some universal truths that it can't help but illustrate in the midst of an apocalyptic setting, where we understand that so much of the things that we think are important. When those things are stripped away, we find what's really important. And that's what Walking Dead does pretty successfully in places in the show. And where I'm at in the show, they did this just recently as they're trying to present the idea that it's better to die on your feet than to live on your knees, as the whole Negan thing is going along. And the guys are starting to realize that you can't live your life as a slave, that it's not a tenable way for living life. Give me liberty or give me death, in other words, is kind of what's going on in the show. And the lead character in the show gives a great parable that I think is worth listening to, or at least entertaining. He says this, that there's a rock in the road, and many people have tried to avoid the rock. It's caused wagon wheels to bust apart. It's caused people to break legs. It's caused a number of issues as people have just tried to avoid this rock rather than dealing with the rock. But finally, a little girl goes and she digs until her hands bleeds until she finally gets the rock out. And when she does, she realizes that underneath it was a bag of gold. And she's all the better because she was willing to address the issue rather than to try to avoid it. And so in the present, we find that the feminization of culture is aiming at the very thing that we need more. It's trying to eliminate those who would address the issues that are plaguing society, and the people who are most likely to address those issues, it is trying to weaken them. Those men who have an obligation to say, young lady, you won't dig that rock out for me, please allow me. It's better my hands bleed than yours. Those men are becoming rarer and becoming something that we need to get back to as quickly as possible. And as a cultural apologist and as a Christian, I think, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, one of the ways that we can do that is by getting back to an understanding of the true masculine, by getting back to an understanding of who God actually is. So you just got done watching a small excerpt of a much larger episode. You can find the link to that full episode down below in the description of this video. So you definitely want to check that out, because if you like that clip, you'll like the much larger episode. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and click that little bell to be notified when great new episodes of Indie Thinker come your way. Thanks for watching.